one of the things that I find a little frustrating when I'm working with them is which mode is actually being transmitted on a particular, and I've got the little waterfall diagram
Right.
on my 7300, and I can kind of go, oh, that kind of looks like, FT8, or that kind of looks like FT4. But it'd be really cool to have a system that can learn all the spectral fingerprints of all the different digital modes and seamlessly kind of switch your FL Digi or whatever you're using into the proper receiving mode. And then maybe even as band conditions change, sort of flip modes into more appropriate digital modes sort of automagically along the way, by taking into account a variety of factors like current band conditions, current atmospheric conditions at your location, the type of antenna you have, the power you're working at, and a variety of other factors, and automatically have a seamless digital experience with different types of modes.
Well, we're talking about the future of AI, artificial intelligence, in ham radio with a splendid guest. Tom and I invited Derek, WADCS, Derek Skirman. There's a link down below that you can look at and find out more information about Derek. And be sure to go back to part 1, because this is part 2 on this incredible topic. Tom, you start out. Let's talk about some new areas that we might consider about AI and ham radio.
Well, it'd be fascinating with AI to be able to describe a circuit and have AI come back and design that circuit for you, give you a bill of materials, the pin outs, the wiring diagram, how it operates, the whole bit, kind of like a Heath kit,
Yeah, or a digital Elmer of some kind,
or a digital Elmer, right?
Yeah. No, I think that there's something there. Certainly you could use AI to basically do, some circuit simulations or some suggestions, or it could be trained on a database of all the ARRL handbooks, for instance, and have sort of basically a suite of different tools and circuits and technologies that it could suggest. Antenna design, similarly. The one thing that I would say, and maybe we can get into this later on, is there's risks with that too. As we mentioned earlier, AI hallucinates. When we were talking about chatbots, it also is not 100% reliable or predictable in terms of how it can perform with sort of new inputs that you might give to it. And if you're building a device, there needs to be some outside expertise to make sure it's done safely and it's done in a way that complies with FCC regulations, and just an outer loop fail-safe check. So I would not, and I certainly hope we don't enter a world where AI is designing all of our electronics. I could see AI informed design, but not AI, not designs that are solely designed and created by AI without some kind of. As an engineer, I would feel very, very uncomfortable about having something that didn't have some kind of outer loop safety check at this point. But certainly to assist with dreaming up new ideas, doing what if kind of calculations with antenna design. Asking questions about circuit designs, right, and having a vast treasure trove of all the, for instance, ARRL projects and so on to draw on. But still, I would not completely trust it 100%. Yeah.
Just like a doctor get a second opinion.
Yeah. Like we said, don't do a medical diagnosis on an AI system. Get an expert to kind of confirm.
I want to get a little bit more into this idea of tutorial. You mentioned the Elmer, and that's a term that's been used historically in ham radio for, let's say, a mentor, somebody that helps you along in the hobby so you learn it and learn it better. And of course, the hobby moved at some point to exams that are very basic for the most part compared to what they used to be, not as difficult to get the ticket, your license. And then they give you all the questions. And you can really memorize most of the answers, or at least enough of them. I don't know what it is, 70% or something you have to pass and get a ticket. And I'm not against that, and I'm not against people doing it. It's just part of life. As a teacher, I have to kind of accept that. But what I wonder about is whether or not AI could help create tests that you would take if you're studying for your ham license, or you want to upgrade your ham license, where it would also guide you along in terms of the background of the answer, why an answer is right, why certain answers, if it's multiple choice, wouldn't be right, and then teach you along the way as kind of a digital teacher out there. I hate to even suggest that, because then people like you and me, Derek, that have made a career out of teaching might think we're not necessary anymore. But it seems to me within that limited concrete notion or area, the scope of getting a ham ticket, that might be really great for ongoing education. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, if you were to just, memorize the database of all the multiple choice answers, you would not be a competent ham. You would just, have memorized things. And so the point is also to learn about the hobby and to have some competence. And so an AI tutor could draw on that database of the sort of exam questions, and then if it could keep track of the ones that you're stumbling on, and then go back and basically provide some tutoring or some additional information, perhaps a few videos, to kind of help you understand that particular concept, and then come at it again with some different questions. So I think that could be a helpful study aid. I think, to have something that could adaptively find areas where you need where you have more weakness and where you need more practice, and assist with becoming a more competent ham. So yeah, no, I think that would be useful.
Tom, you and I have been delving into some new digital modes that we haven't done much with before. We knew about them, but we didn't get really involved and find out how they work, for the good and the bad and the ugly. Before we throw this over to Derek, I want to put you on the spot. You're an engineer too, by background. What do you think AI could contribute to enhancing the digital modes in ham radio?
Well, I've been operating digital modes on HF, basically PSK, Olivia, Domino, VAR AC, for the last 10 years or so. And I'm absolutely thrilled with what you can do with it, especially under low power conditions and weak signal conditions. And the evolution of these digital modes has been progressing so quickly over the last 10 years that it's absolutely amazing. There's probably more HF digital modes that are left in the gutter now than people are actually using. So I really can't imagine what's going to be in the future. I think it's going to be something amazing. Now, you and I have been recently playing around with DMR on the VHF, UHF bands. And to me, that's new territory. And I find that absolutely amazing. And the way that technology progresses, I can't even imagine what we're going to have in the next 5 or 10 years. And I'm sure it's going to be all AI designed.
So, Derek, do you think digital networks, which are big out there now, repeaters connected to repeaters, connected to the internet, connected to other repeaters through the internet, et cetera, do you think that kind of thing could be done fairly automatically and quickly through AI?
Yeah, I imagine you could train a system to sort of connect all these various different networks together. When Tom was talking about the different digital modes, one of the things that I find a little frustrating when I'm working with them is which mode is actually being transmitted on a particular, and I've got the little waterfall diagram on my 7300, and I can kind of go, oh, that kind of looks like, FT8, or that kind of looks like FT4. But it'd be really cool to have a system that can learn all the spectral fingerprints of all the different digital modes and seamlessly kind of switch your FL Digi or whatever you're using into the proper receiving mode. And then maybe even as band conditions change, sort of flip modes into more
Right.
appropriate digital modes sort of automagically along the way by taking into account a variety of factors like current band conditions, current atmospheric conditions at your location, the type of antenna you have, the power you're working at, and a variety of other factors, and automatically have a seamless digital experience with different types of modes. AI could completely automate ham radio
Right.
communications as well, which I think is an issue. I don't know whether you want to go into that. I mean, there is a huge debate over things like FT8 because there is a little bit of
yeah, we're going to get into that.
Okay,
We're going to
all
get
right.
into that. So
I want to
we've
flag
got
that
a
issue,
section
though.
coming up on the potential dangers and misuses. So we'll get
Yes.
to that shortly.
Yes.
Tom, did you want to ask about emergency response? You're big into that.
I was going to ask about it, but I haven't had too much thought about it as far as how it would be implemented. There is drone technology. For example, the recent EF4 tornado that went through Kentucky, they've been using drones in order to locate possible victims and areas where they need assistance. And I imagine that AI combined with drone technology could be able to triage a situation or area and deliver emergency responses directly to where it's actually needed at a particular time.
Yeah, no, I think that's a wonderful possibility for ham radio. I could imagine a ham radio equipped a drone that could survey the damage after after a storm and be able to send that send images or data back to report on that. I could see automated welfare traffic handling that could help basically route and prioritize health and welfare messages. And then just AI to kind of manage sort of the coordination of all the different people that are working in different places and different roles and capacities. I think that would be a tremendous tool to add to our collection, of ways to manage when health and welfare and storms and other things are calling hams to kind of pitch in and help out. Yeah.
So we've been looking at the impact of AI on the future of ham radio, and we've been pretty much positive. We've hit on a few problems, but Tom and I thought that it would be really important, since we've got such a great guest here in Derek, W8DCS, to ask him as well to look at some of the potential downsides. There are always downsides with technology. And Derek and I have both written books about this, trying to provide a balanced approach to our human understanding of technology and where it goes. And when you start looking at AI, there are definitely going to be limitations there. So let's get into this. Tom, why don't you start us off?
Well, depending on how far AI gets integrated into the equipment part of ham radio, you could potentially have hacked radios. I'm not sure how they would be hacked, but everything has got an evil side, and somewhere it's going to pop up and take over your rig, and who knows what to do with it. So again, looking at technology 5 years from now and the ability to hack AI could lead to some tremendous downfalls.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Right. We talked about having, rigs connected, to provide data so that AI could be trained to optimize and improve performance. That also opens you up. If you've got AI rig control and you're connected to the internet or what have you, then you've got the possibility of being hacked and controlled. There's a fun book that I read a number of years ago called "How to Survive a Robot Uprising." It's by a Carnegie Mellon PhD robotics student, right? And he has all of this technical advice for how to avoid, throw your cell phone away so the thing can't, RF track you and things like that. And so I think you can imagine a whole bunch of ways that malicious actors could actually be up to no good if they could suddenly have not just a botnet of servers, but a botnet of ham radios that they would sort of capture and then put to their own use. So yeah, I think that's absolutely but it could also be flipped around. You could imagine a network of ham radios being used to track malicious actors and people transmitting illegally or inappropriately, and then being able to bring together a whole network of rigs to pinpoint basically where trouble is coming from.
Wow, what a great thought.
Yes.
So we talked in part one, and by the way, if you all are watching this part two and you haven't seen part one of our videos, go back to part one when you're done here, because Derek provides a wonderful overview of what AI is. And I'm interested in AI, not just from the technology standpoint. I'm interested in it also because my field is communication, and AI involves language. And not just language in the sense of a computer language, but human language. How do you imitate language? How can you make it seem like you're intelligent through language, or you're artistic or poetic or sophisticated? I mean, there are all these questions about language. And one of the greatest difficulties people have had in trying to create technologies that will mimic human beings, like AI claims to be able to do, is how do you get to natural language, the way that human beings actually use language. And I want to go back on this point with respect to ham radio by going back to the old movie, 2001, A Space Odyssey. It's such a classic for understanding how a filmmaker and writer would think about technology, and how it is that a computer system might get to the point where it is self-aware. It becomes almost person-like. And then suddenly it begins to take over control of that spaceship. If you haven't seen the movie, it's worth seeing from that standpoint. I was a student when I was getting my PhD at the University of Illinois, by the way, where the ham radio company, they did other stuff as well, was there creating rigs at HAL, H-A-L, which was the name of the computer in 2001, A Space Odyssey. So there's some background there. But at any rate, what do you think of the possibility of, let's say, having self-aware ham rigs that just go out there and make contacts and do things, and maybe even are connected to other self-aware rigs, and they just go on and make contacts, and we don't need people anymore? Derek, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, these are far out scenarios. I'd be more, and certainly, theoretically, you could imagine sequences of events that might lead to those sorts of things. But I'd be more worried about bad actors, spoofing particular operators online. So you could imagine an AI system that spoofs K8 Queen Sugar. It sounds just like you, right? And comes online, and it's been trained on your voice, and then does some bizarre things, and damages your reputation, or is used to spread misinformation, or what have you. So I think that there are a lot of different ways that bad actors could actually use these kinds of things for misinformation, for spoofing, for impersonation, people who are unlicensed to sort of make trouble in other ways. So yeah, I think that's probably one thing that's certainly possible. The sort of HAL 2000 your ICOM rig becoming self-aware, I'm a little less worried about. I'd be more worried about sort of regular kind of more pedestrian kind of troublemaking on the air, if I were you.
So, okay, spoofed operators of the pedestrian kind, I get that. Now, what about this? You and I, of course, as educators, know that you can use AI to write papers for you. So if you have a paper that you have to hand in for a course, you can get one concocted by some AI machine out there, and then maybe massage it a little bit and turn it in. So this makes me wonder, what's going to happen with the technological skill set overall? If maybe students don't write as much and they become poorer writers, is it possible that ham radio operators are going to become poorer operators from a technological standpoint because their skill set atrophies? They're dumbing down their technological abilities by relying on AI. What do you think, Derek?
No, absolutely. I think this is a real concern. Well, in education, for sure, right? If people sort of skirt through school by using ChatGPT to generate all their essays and their writing, they're not going to learn how to write. And learning to think is part of learning to write too, right? So there is some real concerns about that, and rightly so. And in the ham radio community, you could imagine, some of the things we talked about, which could be really helpful for accessibility in certain circumstances, but if operators become sort of too accustomed to letting the AI sort of do all of the manipulations of the rig, you could have a kind of skill atrophy over time. I know one of the original motivations, you can correct me if I'm wrong here, for ham radio was just to have a skill base of sort of radio operators in case there was war or disaster or other things that sort of happened. I mean, that was one of the original motivations of the hobby. And I find one of the kind of intriguing things of the hobby is solving puzzles and problems and tinkering, right, and experimenting and so on. But if it suddenly becomes a hobby where all of this stuff sort of becomes automated, there will be a kind of atrophy of skill, and I think it'll change the nature of the hobby in a negative way, I think. But that's my opinion. That's probably related to the FT8 discussion as well. But yeah.
Well, you also have a component of ethical atrophy, where the reliance on AI becomes so great that there's a moral dumbing down of uses of technology and how it affects people's lives and how it would affect the ham radio.
Yeah.
Wow, that's in your bailiwick, Derek. You've written about that and spoken about that quite a bit.
Yeah. No, I think, when you think about ethics and AI, that, there's all kinds of different areas, but in ham radio, I could imagine, the authenticity of contacts. If you're going to be contesting and you're going to have a machine that sort of automates and flips through all the contacts without much input from you, that there would be questions about the legitimacy of those contacts. And basically, I think there's a whole bunch of different ethical issues that get opened up by the possibility of incorporating AI into ham radio. And I can imagine a bit of lag in regulations and tracking some of these things. I think regulations would need to reflect, some of the new issues that might arise from this. Although I think regulation should always provide space for the experimentation side, and the AI will open up new vistas of possibilities that hams can continue to experiment with. But on the other side, sort of some of the new ethical issues that arise, that there may be a need for the regulations to catch up with some of these things as they begin to come online.
Derek, this has been terrific. We've been speaking with Derek. Derek Skurman is how he pronounces his last name, W8DCS. Check the link down below to his information, and you can take a look at what he's written and get to some other videos and all, or you can just do a general search of his name on YouTube and see how active he is in many, many ways. This has been so great, Derek. Tom and I are delighted to be able to do these 2 videos with you on the future of ham radio in the age of AI. And I suspect that Tom and I are going to come back to you with a few specific questions at some point as AI starts to move into ham radio, and we wonder what to do with this. Thanks so much, Derek. This is him.
Yeah, you're welcome. I've really enjoyed it. To be honest with you, ham radio was my gateway into technology and my degree and my career. And so I'm very, very grateful. From a kid tinkering in his bedroom with a crystal radio to my first homebrew 815 dual pentube tube CW transmitter that was rock bound and crystal controlled with a color burst crystal. 3.57 megahertz to sort of now, working as a computer science professor. I can draw a direct line from my ham radio experience to where I am now, and I'm grateful for the hobby.
All right, thanks again, everybody. This is Ham Radio Perspectives on YouTube. We have a lot of videos, more coming. We're creating at least one a week now, and we're trying to address areas that aren't being addressed by others that are of interest to us because they have to do with ham radio history, culture, and technology, and where those three come together. So my name is Quinn, K8QS.
And I'm Tom, WA9TDD.
Please be sure to subscribe. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Derek. We'll see you another time. 7-3, everybody.